Chicago Cubs. News today.
Claude replied, "I've got two updates to keep you up to speed. And this situation might be more important than it looks." What's up, Cubs fans? This is Jake Reynolds, a player with a massive contract, numbers dropping. But this team, when it loses a piece, it responds. Stay with me. The Will 1. Pete Crow Armstrong. The Cubs are sitting at 12 wins and 9 losses in 2026. On the surface, that looks reasonable. But the National League Central isn't giving anyone a break. Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, everyone is right there, packed together. The margin for error is basically zero. In that context, every player who underperforms weighs twice as much as they would in any other division. And when you have an outfielder with a $115 million contract producing well below expectations, that's not just an individual problem. It becomes a team problem. It becomes an equation the front office will have to solve sooner or later. Pete Crow Armstrong came into 2026 with all the expectations in the world. Contract extension signed. All-star in 2025. The Wrigley crowd was ready to watch the next great Cubs center fielder, but what happened was different. The second half of 2025 had already shown warning signs, a .624 OPS after the All-Star break. A lot of people ignored it, said it was fatigue. Just a phase. But those same issues came back in 2026, and now the conversation behind the scenes has gotten more serious. Tim Kelly from Bleacher Report was direct. The concern is not an overreaction. Let's talk numbers, because numbers don't lie. A .5 OPS this season. A 72 OPS plus, when anything above 100 is considered average. Last season, he posted a .768 OPS and a 119 OPS plus. That's a brutal drop. At the plate, he's hitting .222 with just 1 home run. On the bases, he's stolen 4, but has been caught 3 times, the highest caught stealing total in all of Major League Baseball so far. This isn't a temporary slump. This is a pattern that started in July of 2025 and still hasn't been broken. The only thing still saving his evaluation is his defense. In the outfield, PCA is still elite. But defense alone doesn't justify $115 million. The Sporting News brought up a tough question this week. Can Pete Crow Armstrong return to his offensive level from the first half of 2025? Because that was when he justified every dollar of his contract. That was when he looked like a player destined to be the face of the franchise for a decade. The problem is that since then, since mid-July last year, that player has disappeared. And what came back in 2026 is a much more fragile offensive version. The question is no longer, will he improve? The question now is, how long can the team afford to wait? If you follow the Cubs closely, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You saw that first half of 2025. You saw the home runs, the speed on the bases, the confidence at the plate. He was the kind of player that makes you jump off the couch. Now you watch the games and wait, and that expectation doesn't turn into production. I know it's tough to say, but as a fan who really understands the game, you know ignoring the problem won't make it disappear. And the Central won't wait for PCA to figure it out. Every game matters right now. There are 2 paths here. In the first, PCA flips the switch before the first half ends, regains his timing, stops chasing pitches out of the zone, and becomes the line drive hitter we saw in 2025. If that happens, the Cubs have a complete outfielder and the contract makes sense. In the second scenario, he continues on this downward trend. Then the front office faces a tough decision. Either you build the offense around the gaps he leaves, or you look for external help at the trade deadline. With the contention window open right now, Jed Hoyer can't afford to wait for a second-half turnaround to make a decision. The schedule won't wait. There's one detail a lot of people are forgetting. PCA is 22 years old. 22. Most players at that age are still in Double-A trying to prove they belong. He's already been an all-star, already signed a massive extension, already played at Wrigley under maximum pressure. A young player's development curve isn't linear. It has valleys. The problem is that his valley came at a moment when the team desperately needs production. That complicates everything. I'll be honest with you. I'm not ready to give up on PCA. Not yet. But I also can't pretend everything is fine. 21 games into the season isn't much. But this pattern goes back to July of 2025. That's nearly a full year of offensive decline. In my view, the next 4 weeks are decisive. If he doesn't show real improvement by the end of May, the conversation is going to get even tougher in June. Craig Counsell has kept PCA in the lineup without hesitation. That says a lot. The manager still believes in the process. The coaching staff knows that pulling him creates other problems. You weaken the outfield defense and increase pressure on other players. So the current approach is active patience. Let him play, work on adjustments in practice, and trust that the talent will show up. The question is simple. Do the Cubs have time to wait for Pete Crow Armstrong, or will the Central not allow it? Cubs. Strong pitching, powerful offense despite injuries. When Cade Horton went down with an ulnar collateral ligament injury and Tommy John surgery was confirmed, it hit hard. Everyone knows what that means. The best young arm in the rotation, out for the rest of 2026. For a team already dealing with pitching depth issues, losing Horton was the kind of news that could derail any franchise. But the Cubs did what winning teams do. They played. And not just any baseball. They played their best baseball of the season right after the worst news of the year. After the loss to Pittsburgh, the team had an immediate test ahead. Philadelphia, then New York, 2 serious opponents. But something changed in the clubhouse. Craig Counsell spoke publicly about confidence in the group, and the players responded on the field. The 5-game winning streak wasn't luck. It was built on solid pitching, collective offensive production, and that team energy that comes from knowing you can't rely on just one hero. When Horton went down, others stepped up. That doesn't happen everywhere. The numbers from that stretch tell the story. 33 runs scored in the first 3 games of the streak. Over the weekend, the pitching staff took control. Jameson Taillon with 6 strong innings on Saturday, Javier Assad with 5 2/3 innings, allowing just 1 run in an extra innings win on Sunday. And Nico Hoerner, 2 home runs and 11 RBIs in the last 5 games. 11. That's not schedule luck. That's a player stepping into a leadership role when the team needs it most. The team ERA during this stretch was at a contender level, and most importantly, they did it without Horton. Joel Reuter from Bleacher Report summed it up well. 5 straight wins, a sweep over the Mets, a series win in Philly. The team went from a potentially devastating moment, losing its most exciting pitcher, to playing its best baseball of the season. That matters beyond the standings. It speaks to team identity. The 2026 Cubs are showing they're not a project dependent on one piece. But the upcoming schedule will demand more. And that 5-game streak needs to become fuel, not comfort. You saw what this team did last weekend, right? You were watching that 2-1 extra innings win over the Mets and felt it. That feeling of a team that doesn't quit. PCA placed on base in the 10th inning, wild pitch, Hoerner with the sac fly. Wrigley would have exploded if it were at home, but even on the road, they got it done. That's the kind of baseball you want to watch all season. And now the question is, do you believe this group can sustain that level with the schedule ahead? April will close with a brutal stretch. Phillies at home for 4 games, then Los Angeles to face the Dodgers, then San Diego. 3 heavy opponents in a row. If the Cubs come out of that stretch above Camp Wars 500, they'll enter May with strong momentum and a solid position in the Central. If they stumble, especially without Horton and with an already taxed bullpen, with Palencia also on the injured list, things can shift quickly. The pitching depth will truly be tested. Counsell will need to get creative with openers and bullpen management. There's no margin for error. One detail that flew under the radar. Daniel Palencia, the closer, also hit the injured list with a left oblique strain. So the Cubs aren't just without Horton, they're also piecing together late innings with alternative options. That puts more pressure on Tayan Assad and the remaining healthy relievers. The pitching staff depth will define this team's ceiling in 2026. And right now, Jed Hoyer has to monitor it closely because the injury list on the mound is already too long. I'll tell you what I really think. This team surprised me this week. Not because of the quality of play. I've always known this group has talent. They surprised me with their character. Losing Horton in early April, with the season still fresh, could have created an environment of built-in excuses. It didn't. They pushed forward. And to me, that's the most important signal the Cubs have sent so far in 2026. Behind the scenes, the conversation about adding rotation help has already started. Jed Hoyer admitted a deep dive might be needed to evaluate options. Lucas Giolito, a 2019 All-Star, is on the market as a free agent and drawing interest from teams needing rotation help. The Cubs are watching, not an elite solution, but an experienced option at a time when the staff depth is stretched thin. This team has shown it can rise when one falls. The question is, how many times will they have to do it before May is over? If you enjoy this content and want to keep following the Cubs closely, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. Every update comes in hot, straight from someone living it with you.